So in this video, we're going to talk about immune cells and introduce the idea of immune cells being in different parts of the body, originating in certain parts, patrolling, defending, attacking. So we'll talk about immune cells as well as immune tissues and organs and the locations in the body. So first, we're going to introduce immune cells, and this is just going to be a general introduction to immune cells, not specific functions, just the general functions, as well as introducing some of the organs of the immune system. So when we talk about the immune system, we often start with the bone marrow, because this is where both white blood cells, immune cells, leukocytes, those are all terms for immune cells, originate. Not just white blood cells, but red blood cells, erythrocytes, as well as the cells that generate platelets or thrombocytes. They all originate in our bone marrow. Now, we have different types of bone marrow. We have yellow bone marrow, which is fat, typically found in the central cavity of long bones. We also have red bone marrow. So red bone marrow is the cells that you find in spongy bone, especially your long bones, like the femur or the tibia, in your ribs, in your pelvis, in your spinal bones. You will often find within those bones spongy bone tissue, spongy bone, and within those nooks and crannies, you have these cells that make up your red bone marrow. And those cells are referred to, the cells that generate your white blood cells, red blood cells, and platelets. These cells are referred to as stem cells, and the fact that when they divide, they produce two daughter cells. One daughter cell stays a stem cell. The other daughter cell will differentiate or turn into a different type of cell, to send a cell down a certain lineage to produce a certain type of cell. So the fact that these stem cells can reproduce and produce many different types of cells gives them the name pluripotent. So they have many possibilities in terms of what they can divide and turn into. They turn into your blood cells, so we call it hematopoietic stem cells. So when you see pluripotent or multipotent hematopoietic stem cells, then again, these refer to the cells in your red bone marrow that will generate all the cells of your blood, specifically also your immune cells. So we talked about the fact that these are stem cells. They are self-renewing or self-replicating. So when they divide, they will keep producing themselves, but they will also, in their daughter cells, produce either myeloid or lymphoid progenitors, depending on what the body needs. And so you can actually send signals to your stem cells, say, hey, we need more B cells. Hey, we need more neutrophils. So those signals, which come in the form of cytokines, will get your stem cells, pluripotent stem cells, to divide and differentiate and release different types of cells. So let's introduce some of these different types of cells. Again, we're using the term differentiate when cells divide and turn into, they change their genetic programming to turn into a new type of cell. And we'll talk about the lymphocytes first. Lymphocytes, we will often find them in our lymphatic system, but not always. They're in other parts of the body as well. But our lymphocytes, when we refer to lymphocytes, we talk about the B cells or B lymphocytes, and their function is going to be to recognize non-self molecules like pathogens. And when they recognize non-self molecules, they will differentiate into plasma cells and release antibodies. So that's a whole unit in this course, talking about how B cells develop, how they recognize pathogens, and how they produce antibodies, lots of different types of antibodies, and how those antibodies function. So those are B cells or B lymphocytes. T cells or T lymphocytes, they can also recognize pathogens or recognize abnormal cells in our body. And when they do, they can activate and either kill cells or release cytokines that will help other parts of the immune system function well. So again, that's a whole unit in this course talking about how T cells develop, how they recognize pathogens, and how they remove pathogens from the body or help the body remove pathogens. The last type of lymphocyte we'll talk about are the NK cells or natural killer cells. they can recognize abnormal human cells. Something's abnormal about it. Maybe they're cancerous, maybe they're infected with a pathogen, and destroy those cells. So those are the lymphocytes. We're going to find them in all different areas of the body. We'll get to that later. There are also phagocytes, which come out of the myeloid arm of the immune system. So what are phagocytes? Phagocytes are eaters. They're cells which will identify something as abnormal or pathogenic and bring it in via a process called phagocytosis. Envelop it with its membranes and take it in via a vesicle. So these are phagocytes performing phagocytosis. Three main types of phagocytes, the macrophage, the big eater, the neutrophil, which is a tiny eater, and the dendritic cell, which is the star-like phagocyte. Why do we have different phagocytes? Well, we're going to see they're in different parts of the body. They are going to function differently. They're going to, when they phagocytose, do things a little differently. But those are the three phagocytes we'll talk about throughout the course. Let's talk about our granulocytes. These are cells that within their cytoplasm contain these structures known as granules. And these granules often have very toxic molecules within them. They might have enzymes, they might have reactive compounds that when released onto a pathogen will actually chemically attack that pathogen and destroy it. So mast cells, basophils, eosinophils, and neutrophils are all granulocytes. They contain these granular structures in their cytoplasm. Why do we have 4 different types of granulocytes? Again, we're going to see they're located in different parts of the body. They will activate differently. They will recognize pathogens differently. So we will see granulocytes throughout the course as well. The last thing we can mention here, again, which are not immune cells necessarily, are erythrocytes, which are red blood cells. Their function is to carry oxygen and carbon dioxide. They do play one function, which we will talk about in the immune system, but we'll get to that later. And then behind me, the megakaryocyte, which will produce these small structures, these small molecules, not molecules, small cell fragments known as platelets or thrombocytes. And they're going to play a role in wound repair, clotting. So these are the cells of the immune system, though. Like I said, we're going to talk about throughout the course. This is just a general introduction on what they are and what they do in the body. So those are the cells. On the next video, we're actually going to talk about some tissues and organs of the immune system. We just talked about red bone marrow, but we're going to talk also about some other tissues in the immune system as well.